All right, so we're going to start on the search area here, but before we do that, I just want to move the button down a little bit in the slider. You see how it's really close to the text? It's kind of bothering me a little. So what I'm going to do is just open up our main.css, and we're just simply going to say the class of slider, and then the class of button inside of that. I'm just going to give a margin top of 20 pixels. And that will just move it down a little bit. Okay, not a big deal, but something that I think looks a little better. All right, so now we're going to go underneath the slider section. You see how we have our section tag here. It ends here. So now we're going to go down on this line, and this is where we're going to start our search section. So we're going to say section and search. Okay, so section. It's going to have a class of section, which gives it some padding. It's also going to have a custom class of section-search. And let's make it teal, but I also want it to be a little darker, so we're going to say darken. Actually, I should have dots here. So teal, darken 1 we're going to do. And we want to make sure the text is white, so we want white text. And let's also center everything. Okay, so that's our section. Now we're going to have a container inside here to contain everything into the middle. And then we're going to use the grid. So I'm going to put a row, and then it's just going to be one 12 column grid. So we can just do col, and we can do S12. Okay, and this is the format we're going to use for most projects. We'll have the section, the container to restrict it, and then the row, and then however many columns we're using. Even if it's a full column, even if it's a full width, it's still good practice to have a 12 column div here. All right, so inside here we'll put an H3, and we're going to say search destinations. Let's just save that, so it should look like that so far. And then under that we'll have the input field, so we're going to have a div with the class of input field. And we'll have an input, it'll be type text, but I'm going to add some classes to this. So one is going to be white. I don't want it to have the standard materialized form field look where it's just a single line. I want it to have the, the box, the white box. So that's why I'm giving it a class of white. And then I'm going to give it gray text. Okay. We're going to do the autocomplete too, so we might as well add that as well. So we'll say autocomplete for our class, and let's give it a placeholder as well. So give people some hints, like let's say Aruba, Cancun, etc. Okay, now when we're using autocomplete, you want to use the ID of autocomplete dash input. Okay, and we went over this in the sandbox as well. And we're not going to do a label here. The placeholder is fine. We have the big H3, so people will know what this is. So let's go ahead and save. All right, now there are some things that I want to change within our custom CSS file. I want to add some padding. I want to change the font size, things like that. I want to make the width a little shorter, so 90%, and then just add a border. So let's go to our main CSS, and let's say .section dash search, and then we want the input that's inside that section. Okay, and we're going to add a padding of 5 pixels. Now a lot of these we need to override materialize, so we're going to need to put the important flag, which will obviously give it, it'll make it important, and it will override the initial style. So font size, I'm going to set to 18 pixels, and we'll also say important, and let's give it a width of 90%. And then we're going to say border, and we'll do a light gray. Let's do 3 pixels solid and important. All right, save, and there we go. So you can see it changed up a little bit. I think it looks a little better. All right, now let's see, for the autocomplete, obviously nothing's going to happen yet because we need to initialize it. We need to actually let it know what's going to be included in the autocomplete. Okay, so we're going to do that in the JavaScript. So let's go down here. We'll go under the slider and we'll say autocomplete. And we're just going to use jQuery, and we're going to say the class of autocomplete. And then what we want to do is do a dot autocomplete, and then we want to pass in an object and then pass in a data object. Okay, and this is where we put the autocomplete words. So what I'm going to do is just paste these in real quick. So we're going to use like Aruba, Cancun, Mexico, Hawaii, just some popular vacation places. And we'll go ahead and save that. And then let's go over here and just put in an A, and you'll see we get our autocomplete. Now, one thing that I don't want is this whole area, this green area, to extend with the autocomplete. I want it to go outside of it, and I want it to stay the same height. So we actually have to add a little bit of custom CSS for that. So let's put in a class of autocomplete dash content, which is a class that's automatically included with it, and we're just going to set the position to absolute so that it basically doesn't it's not going to affect things around it. Okay, and we're going to set the width to 100% and then just align everything to the center. Okay, so now if we save and we do it again, now you'll see that it actually goes outside of this section instead of extending the green part, which is what we want. Alright, so that is the search area. So now let's do the icon boxes, which is a pretty easy area of the template. So let's go right under this section and say section icon boxes, and you see how neat this is to have just each section like this. This is how I prefer to do all of my websites and UIs like this. I think it makes things very easy, very scalable. If I wanted to move the search down, I could just take this and move it down. I do this with Bootstrap, with just regular HTML, CSS, any kind of framework. I like to just break things up into sections. Alright, so let's go ahead and say section.section, because we want to give it that materialized section class, which gives it the padding. And then we also want to give it our own class, which we'll call section icons. Okay, and then we're also going to give it a class of gray. And let's do a class of lighten-4. I want to make it gray, but really light gray. And then we also want to center it. And then in here, we'll do our container. We'll do our row. And let's do our columns. Now we're going to have 3 different boxes. So we want to do call S12, so it's stacked, so it's responsive, and it's just one box across when it's on a mobile device. But we want to do M4 on medium-sized screens, and bigger, we want it to go across 4 columns. We want 3 4-column divs. Okay, and in here, what we'll do is use a card panel. So class card panel, and then inside here we'll put an icon. So we want our material icons, and we're going to use an icon called room, which actually gives us like a Google Maps marker or placeholder thing. So if I leave it as is, it's going to be really small. So I'm going to actually add in here, I'm going to add large to make it bigger, and I want it to be teal. So I'm going to say teal-text. Whenever you want to color an icon, you want to make sure you use the text, not just the color. So teal text. And then we'll put an H4, and then this is going to say pick where. Okay. And then for our paragraph here, we're going to say lorem 10 tab to give us 10 words. And then what I'll do is copy the column, so from here to here, and we want 2 more of these. And then the second one here, we're going to change the icon to store. And then I'm going to change the H4 to travel shop. Okay, this last one here, we're going to change the icon to airplane underscore active. Okay, I know they have some weird names for icons. And then for this, we're going to just do, we're going to say fly cheap. Okay, so let's save that, see what it looks like. Let's see, did I spell airplane wrong? Or is it not? Oh, it's airplane mode active. That's even weirder. Okay, so there's our icons, good. And they should be responsive, so when we hit down to here, you'll see that everything stacks. All right, and notice that the smaller text in the slider also disappears. So everything looks pretty good so far. So in the next video, we're going to start on the popular places, which are cards with images. We're actually going to use the same images that are used in the slider, so you don't have to worry about downloading new images. All right, so let's go ahead and do that next.